Greetings, my Lennar friends, and welcome to another opportunity to strengthen your skill set as a Lennar new home consultant. In this module, we're going to focus on overcoming objections, of helping buyers move forward with confidence, ideally helping them to make a purchase decision just after you've overcome that objection. Now let's get something straight right from the start. Objections are not a sign that things are going badly. In fact, the very presence of objections often means that your buyer is seriously considering that home. They're not brushing you off. They are actually engaging. They're asking for help. So in this video, we're going to reframe the way we think about objections, and then we'll define what an objection really is. I'm going to walk you through a 5-step framework to help you turn hesitation into trust, turn fear into clarity, turn objections into agreements. All right, let's dive in. Now here's the first big mindset shift. You are not here to fight or battle objections. You're here to guide buyers through those objections. That's a big difference. You see, too many salespeople go straight into solution mode the moment that a concern of any kind is raised. And that's a problem, because when we assume we know what's going on, we're often in error, either to the specifics of the objection or to the magnitude of objections. In fact, studies show we misdiagnose the real concern as much as 2/3 of the time. Now, what we really want to do is welcome objections. Why? Well, let's start with a definition. Every customer begins their journey with this ideal in mind up here. I want this size home with these features in this location. That's their ideal. But we all know there is no such thing as perfect. The ideal simply doesn't exist. What they perceive is their actual, the perception of what's available to them. It's not the ideal, it's not perfect. So you have the ideal and you have the actual. The objection lies in between those two things. That is the definition of an objection. Now, because there's no such thing as a perfect home, then logically speaking, we can say that objections are perfectly normal. And not just normal, objections can and should be seen as buying signals, as a buyer's plea for help. They need your help to get them through this so they can make a decision. Look, if their issue were a deal killer, they would simply leave. They wouldn't stand around telling you all about their concerns. The customer is asking you for help. The home is definitely in play, but they need your assistance in getting beyond the issue. The bottom line, I think you should get excited whenever you hear an objection. Now, to help you do that, I want to share with you a 5-step framework to overcome the objections. Here's the overview first. Step 1, allow the customer to talk it out. Step 2, discover the main and the real concern. Step 3, use the proper response strategy. Step 4, confirm resolution with the customer. And Step 5, ask for the sale. We'll walk through each one and share examples and techniques and tips that will help you to make it your own. All right, step number 1, you want to allow the customer to talk it out. When a buyer raises an objection, your first job is to listen, not to fix, not to explain, not to persuade, not to solve, just listen. Now that takes a certain amount of restraint, I know, but it builds trust and it gives you the full story. So a customer might say, I don't know, I just don't think I'm ready to move forward yet. You can respond initially by saying, I understand it's a big decision, but tell me what's going through your mind right now. That pause, that curiosity, that's leadership. You're giving them permission to be honest, and that's the first step towards resolution. Resist the temptation to go into solve mode. I have an answer for that. Just listen and connect. Now, step 2 then is to discover the main concern. You see, objections are often stated on the surface level. Your job is to ask open-ended questions to get underneath the surface. That customer might say, well, this model just seems a little out of our price range. Well, what does that mean? You need to dig deeper. Or you could respond by saying, I hear you, but when you say out of the range, are you mostly thinking about the monthly payment or the overall purchase price? And that follow-up gives the buyer space to be able to clarify. Now you're working on the real concern, not just the one that they blurted out first. So here's a mental framework to help you. Whenever a customer voices an objection, develop the habit of immediately asking some version of, "Tell me more about that." You need to determine two things. One, the specifics of the objection, that is, what is the real issue? And two, the severity of the objection. Is it a relatively minor concern or is it a potential deal killer? All right, step 3 is to choose the proper response strategy. This is where we actually respond to the concern. You've uncovered the real issue, it's time to respond, but not with a canned answer. You need to choose the right tool for the job. So I want to share with you 3 powerful response strategies. The first is called transfer of ownership. And this puts the problem solving back in the buyer's hands. You're transferring ownership of the resolution to the buyer. You know why? Because people believe in solutions that they come up with themselves. So I could respond to an objection by saying, "Okay, I'm hearing you. Let me ask you this. If you already lived here, how do you think you could make this work?" Or if I said, "Suppose this was the only home available and you had to figure it out. What would you do if you already lived here?" That's a great way to get the customer involved in the solution, and their solution will matter. The second strategy is what we refer to as utilizing social proof. You see, people trust the experience of others, especially people like them or those who have gone through a similar experience. So if a customer says, "I'm not sure about the slope in the backyard," you could respond with, "Yes, a few of our other buyers have raised that same concern. In fact, one of them just down the street turned into a tiered garden and play space. It looks great. Would you like to see a picture of what he did?" You see, social proof says you're not alone. Other people have had that same objection, and here's how they made it work. The third strategy is when the first two don't work, and it's called, "Can you live with it?" Look, sometimes you just won't have a perfect answer, and that's okay. But this strategy helps the buyer decide if the issue is a deal breaker or if it's just a matter of discomfort. So I could say to the customer, "Knowing that you love the plan and the location and that the price is right, is the 2-story home behind your backyard something you could live with?" All right, we use those 3 strategies and then we move on to step 4, which is confirming resolution with the customer. See, once you've worked through the objection, don't assume that it is resolved. You don't want this hanging out there, so just ask. I could say to a customer, "So with the soundproofing upgrades and the homeowner feedback that I shared earlier, does that help ease your concern about the road noise?" You see, when you check in, you either confirm resolution or you uncover any remaining hesitation. Now, step 5, whenever possible, leverage this resolution into asking for the sale. Now that the concern is addressed, you can confidently guide the buyer to the next step. I could say, "All right, since the floor plan fits your needs and we've talked through your concerns, would you feel comfortable moving forward today with a purchase agreement?" You're not pushing, you're leading. Now, your task is to apply the right solution based on what you know about the customer in front of you. Try the transfer of ownership when the buyer struggles to visualize a solution. Use social proof when the concern is common, but you also know that it's solvable. And then ask, "Can you live with it?" when the buyer needs help putting things in perspective. Now remember, no technique is magic. Sometimes the timing just isn't right, but your calm, confident guidance leaves a strong impression, and that might just bring the buyer back. Now, one more important point. Research shows us that top performers do something differently when addressing objections. They talk slower. Average performers let their nerves get the better of them, and that speeds up their cadence, and it invites stress into the conversation. Stay calm. Don't give your customer the impression that you're worried about this objection. Slow down your pace. All right, let's wrap this up. Objections are not rejections, they are opportunities. They signal that the buyer is in decision mode, and your leadership matters more than ever. Embrace that objection. Get excited. Use the 5-step framework. Help your buyers move forward, not just with information, but with confidence.